Have you ever wondered why some roads vanish after midnight? Why even footsteps seem to be swallowed whole by the darkness? Tonight, we're going to a place that locals call cursed, a path winding through ancient forest, forgotten by maps and feared by generations. Most stories in Japan are born from history. But the tale of Hosan Shrine, deep in the valley near Saiga, is born from something both older and darker than any record. You want proof? The old trail leading to the shrine doesn't exist on Google, and villagers have stopped mentioning its name aloud. It's as if the land itself is trying to erase Hosan from memory. But erasure never comes easily when restless souls are involved. This story began, like so many do, with a dare, a challenge between friends. But it ended with only one person returning, forever changed. If you've ever felt that chilling sensation, the hairs on your neck rising, the sudden stillness in the air, the feeling of being watched, keep listening. Because at Hosan, that feeling never goes away. Some say the shrine hungers for visitors willing to test fate. Others say the shrine keeps the living and the dead on opposite sides of a line so thin, it can be crossed by accident. Tonight, you'll decide what you believe. The legends of Hosan Shrine begin with stones. Not ordinary stones, but granite tablets brought by grieving families centuries ago. Each stone was carved with the name of someone lost in tragedy. Deaths by drowning, deaths by violence, deaths that never found peace. The elders once believed that when a soul leaves the body this way, it cannot travel on. The rage and sorrow chain it to earth. So they devised a ritual. Instead of letting those spirits wander as yokai, they trapped them in stone and left the slabs in the shrine's courtyard. In spring, villagers would avoid the path, claiming blossoms wilted in the shrine's shadow. In winter, children were forbidden to play anywhere near the forest's edge. But still, the stones multiplied, a silent, growing crowd of names that no one spoke aloud. And in the quiet of midnight, it said you can hear voices echoing off the ancient granite, pleading, angry, sometimes mocking. It was a rainy October when the dare was issued. 3 friends, Tomo, Saki, and June, had grown up hearing their grandparents' warnings, but like all generations, they refused to truly believe. Armed with flashlights and a phone to film, they set out to find Hosan Shrine after sunset, ignoring warnings about foxfire in the woods and shadow shapes across the old footbridge. Their first discovery came as dusk gave way to night. The forest grew silent, unnaturally so. No wind, no birds, just the static buzz of the phone's microphone, picking up something almost too low to hear. Tomo remarked that it was like being inside a bell just before it rings. Saki brushed it off with a laugh, but even June, the skeptic, looked uneasy. The trail was muddy, marked with half-rotted milestones that disappeared the moment they were passed. Every step seemed to pull the trio deeper into silence. And then the first stone slab appeared, in the middle of the trail, almost as if waiting for them. Its surface was rough but unmistakably carved, though only Tomo could make out the kanji under a quick sweep of their flashlight. "He drowned," she whispered, reading the inscription, and instantly the air grew colder. "To keep your attention, let's pause for a question. What would you do, standing in front of a cursed stone, deep in a forest where sound has vanished and the air stings with cold? Would you turn back or press on?" The group pressed on. Soon, more stones lay in their path, and the terrain became confusingly familiar, looping as if the woods had folded in on themselves. Tomo began recording, focusing her lens on the granite slabs, each time seeing a faint blur, just outside the field of light. Saki cracked nervous jokes, but the humor faded quickly. June tried using his phone for GPS, but the signal was gone, replaced by wavering bars and glitching text. Then the changes began. The temperature dropped so sharply their breath fogged the air. Shadows between the trees thickened into shapes. Hunched figures, flickering edges, sometimes pairs of pale eyes reflecting dim light. But the camera failed to capture anything except the stones. Each time Tomo tried to film, the device overheated or froze. At what felt like the halfway point, a heavy mist rolled in, so thick each friend could barely see the next. Tomo's flashlight flickered, and voices began to seep through the white shroud. Not words, exactly, but layered whispers, each one trailing off into melancholy laughter. By this moment, one thing kept viewers glued to the screen. Stakes had shifted. You know these kids will see something no one should, but you want to know how far they'll go, and if anyone escapes. That invisible countdown is what makes this ancient path so dangerous. June found the next milestone, a stone just larger than the rest, marked by fresh scratches. He bent closer, tried to read, and suddenly let out a gasp. It moved, he hissed, claiming the stone had shifted, like something underneath it was breathing. Saki didn't believe him until her own light revealed a second, smaller, stone wedged beside it, inscribed with a child's name. The three debated turning back, but each path led to new stones and repeating scenery. Desperation set in. Saki called out, demanding the old ghosts let them pass. The trees bent overhead, muting every echo. Just then, Tomo's phone buzzed, its battery almost dead, but displaying a single image. Not what she'd filmed, but a blurred face, wet and gray, staring out from behind a granite slab. Want to know what happens next? The story is just beginning. Because as the night deepens, the stones stop marking graves and start marking boundaries between the living and the dead. And there's only one way out: understanding what the forest wants before it claims another name for its stones. Stay till the end. What you see, and what you don't, may haunt you long after this story fades to black. Imagine returning to a place that feels different every night, the forest shifting itself as if remembering each footstep and each secret sworn under its canopy. The rumors about Hosan's shrine gained their strength from one question that nobody could answer. Where do the lost travelers go? After Tomo, Saki, and June vanished from the path, local whispers filled the valley like fog. The disappearance ignited old fears, and elders began to revisit the tales of other wanderers. Hikers, seekers, even animals who never returned once they crossed the shrine's unseen border. But the truth was always more complicated. For those who dared to ask, stories revealed strange details. A hiker reappearing days later, unable to recall his name. A traveler's watch running backward. A tourist's shoes found neatly folded by the trail, with footprints simply stopping at the first stone. To understand this mystery, picture how the shrine's history grows heavier with every new loss. Each incident stitches itself into the fabric of the valley, making reality itself unpredictable after nightfall. What starts as an adventure soon becomes a trial, and only those who respect the rules. Never leave the path, never touch the stones, never answer when called, stand a chance of returning. Villagers recall the year the disappearances began, a summer like any other, until a group of college students arrived seeking thrill and folklore. They filmed themselves laughing through the forest, but the video's last frame was a static image of granite slabs, the screen streaked with a blurry handprint. Their rental bikes were found days later, chained in a line at the town's edge, untouched by rain, seats still warm. No trace of the students ever surfaced. Since then, authorities tried to explain everything away: lost hikers, sudden storms, bear attacks. But even search teams reported disturbing phenomena on rescue attempts. Compasses spinning wild, muffled voices in mist, and a suffocating cold that crept in from nowhere. One young policeman, sent to look for a missing couple, described being watched by hundreds of eyes he couldn't see. He quit the force soon after, refusing to go near the woods again. But for those living in Saiga, the mysteries are intimately personal. An old shop owner remembered her brother vanishing as a teenager. He'd mocked the shrine's legends before a festival, then disappeared on his way home. Decades later, his name appeared carved into a new stone at the shrine, a name no one had ever submitted, chiseled as if by invisible hands. When she asked the priest about it, he simply bowed and turned away. As anxiety grew, strange customs emerged. Every child must wear a bell on their backpack. Morning market stalls selling salt and incense for forest protection. Sunrise prayers near the first milestone. Some locals believed spirits marked newcomers by giving them a flickering vision, a glimpse of a familiar road, a comforting voice in the darkness just moments before being taken. Social media and urban legends amplified the fears. A travel blogger posted about plans to explore Hosan at sunset. Her account abruptly fell silent for 2 weeks, then resumed with a terse message. Sometimes the line between lost and found is thinner than it seems. No explanation, no photos, no replies. Yet, for the most determined, the shrine's curse seemed more like a puzzle, a challenge to be solved. Urban explorers debated safe strategies, carrying old coins, never filming after midnight, making offerings at the shrine gates without entering. Yet even these tactics failed. Young explorers vanished hour by hour, their messages growing frantic, chills in the air, distorted audio on their phones, shapes moving just beyond flashlight beams. The pattern became clear. Those who disappeared always shared 2 traits: ignore the warning signs and respond to voices calling their names. Survivors reported an overwhelming sense of déjà vu, as if the forest had summoned them before, and some recounted visions of new milestones appearing mid-trail with their names inscribed. before the memory faded into fog. No matter how hard authorities searched, the vanished never resurfaced, except in occasional inexplicable ways. A charm returned to a desperate mother's garden, a phone recharged and mailed with no return address, a fleeting warmth at the festival shrine. Local lore changed with each loss. Some say Hosan Shrine borrows visitors to keep its legends alive. Others believe each soul lost there helps turn the forest's mist into a protective shroud, hiding the shrine from outsiders who would break the old rules. But the most persistent warning remains: never underestimate the stones and never, ever walk the forest after dusk. If you're still watching, imagine yourself standing on the edge of that path, the trees dense, the air sharp with secrets, the next step uncertain. The story of the disappeared travelers isn't over. The forest's game is still in play, and the only way to understand it is to listen for the clues left in silence and stone. With every chapter, the mystery deepens and Hosan Shrine grows stronger, collecting another story, another name, another shadow tangled with the living. Some roads are better left unexplored. But if you must know what happened next, stay close, keep your bell ringing, and step gently. Because sometimes the path doesn't lead home. Not for everyone. There are places where fascination turns to obsession, where the line between curiosity and peril is invisible, until it's far too late. Tonight's chapter follows Yuko, a modern seeker whose desire to capture the unseen nearly consumes her. But her story isn't just about haunted woods or ancient curses. It is a warning to anyone drawn to mysteries that should remain untouched. Yuko's journey began not in the forest, but online, her blog filled with stories of ruins, shrines, and folklore, a portfolio of shadow and silence. When rumors of Hosan Shrine, the so-called Granite Soul's shrine, surfaced in urban explorer circles, Yuko's imagination ignited. A place unmarked on digital maps, shrouded in both fog and secrecy? She couldn't resist. Viewers stayed glued as the narrative unfolded in real time. Yuko planned meticulously, packing lenses, a new battery pack, extra memory cards. Her following watched through Instagram updates, each post building suspense, location tagged only as somewhere lost, comments piling up. Be careful. Film everything. Don't go alone. But it was her direct messages that drove the tension. Friends begged her to stream live, to stay connected, to send her GPS pin every hour. On a stormy October morning, Yuko boarded a bus for Saiga. The landscape was cinematic, low clouds devouring the mountains, the road twisting through centuries-old forest. At the village limit, she gathered the last bits of advice from locals, relaying their nervous warnings back to her audience. "Salt your shoes," suggested a housewife. "Don't whistle near the shrine," warned the station master. Her arrival at the trailhead was streamed, a shaky selfie, laughter masking nerves. She described vivid details to her viewers: the scent of rotting leaves, the heavy silence broken only by her footsteps. Even through the lens, viewers felt her caution, pausing at strange stones, muting the audio when wind hissed through the branches. Engagement rose. Chat was filled with theories about stone spirits, ritual rules, tricks to evade the supernatural. Throughout the hike, tension came in waves. Yuko narrated each moment. Birds vanishing from view, trees bent toward the shrine, her compass spinning, the sky growing uncanny shades of violet. Every viewer knows she's pushing her luck, but her skill at inviting participation, asking for opinions, reading live chat warnings, kept eyes locked on the unfolding drama. Then the moment, Yuko reached the clearing and the shrine appeared, a structure carved from time itself, roof sagging beneath moss, stone lanterns sprawled across a carpet of mist. She circled the perimeter, streaming slow pans of every surface. When a single, unmarked granite stone caught her eye, she focused her camera and snapped a sequence of photos. That's when everything shifted. The first sign was nearly invisible. As she reviewed images on screen, shapes moved at the periphery, blurred, humanoid, gone when she blinked. Viewers saw it too. Screenshots flooded the chat. Speculation ran wild. Was it a trick of mist, compression artifact, or something otherworldly? Rewatching the footage, Yuko found a chilling anomaly. In each new shot, figures grew clearer, countless faces hovering just beyond focus. Suddenly, her camera malfunctioned, the battery freezing, memory card unreadable, device refusing to shut off. She ran diagnostics on air, voice trembling as the camera began clicking images on its own, as if possessed. Chat froze in suspense. Yuko pressed on, her curiosity a double-edged blade, trying manual resets, pulling up images that now showed granite slabs crowded with pale forms. Her livestream audience grew, desperate for resolution. Some begged her to leave. Others urged her to confront the phenomenon. The most committed fans clipped segments, analyzing audio for ghostly voices, exploring image metadata for digital fingerprints. Even as tension soared, Yuko kept narrating, voice threaded with mounting dread. Light began to fade. The forest pressed in, branches grasping, shadows lengthening. Yuko tried to retreat, only to find the path behind her lost to fog. The ritual objects at the shrine's altar, coins, bells, faded talismans, seemed strangely warm, pulsing under her fingertips. The suspense spiked again. Chat calculated sunset, advised her to take the risk and run toward the trail, warned her to destroy the images or stash the camera. But Yuko's sense of purpose refused to break. Shaking, she attempted an experiment, describing every action to the viewers, touching the unmarked stone, reciting old prayers she remembered from childhood. With each spoken word, figures in the photos grew less distinct. For a moment, the air cleared, mist rose, and Yuko heard faint laughter, a chilling confirmation that she was not alone. As she moved to leave, her camera surged with energy, screen flickering, photos changing in real time to show her own terrified face, as though photographed from behind. The chat exploded. Yuko declared, "I'm done," and tried to run, only to be stopped by a wall of mist. The climax held viewers tightly, frantic audio, visual glitches, Yuko's panicked breathing. She narrated her escape, pushing through branches, ignoring the weight of hidden eyes. Her connection dropped, leaving thousands of viewers stranded in darkness. A ripple of uncertainty ran through her audience. Was this a stunt, a technical failure, or something more sinister? Hours later, Yuko returned with a final message. She had escaped. No images survived, no video files loaded, even the cloud backups were missing. But she described seeing faces in every flash of lightning, hearing her name called in voices not her own. In retelling this chapter, viewers lingered on one question. What did the camera capture, and why did the shrine let Yuko go? The suspense remains. Every audience member, from skeptic to believer, came away changed, haunted by the possibility that somewhere, in the cold memory of a haunted SD card, the truth of Hosan Shrine still waits. Stick with the tale, because the next steps will break ground between worlds. The Granite Soul's Shrine doesn't just claim the vanished, it remembers the curious. And in the silence between chapters, every watcher must decide how far they're willing to see. There's a moment every explorer dreads, the realization that they are no longer alone, even when their footsteps echo in an empty place. As dusk poured thick shadows into the courtyard of Hosan Shrine, Yuko's excitement turned to dread. She had come to make sense of legends, to document the invisible. Instead, she was about to become part of the story. The unmarked stone in the center of the shrine seemed harmless at first, a fresh addition, out of place among weathered slabs etched with names. Yuko knelt to examine it, fingertips brushing the damp surface. She dared herself to take a photo, her lens drawn inexorably to the stone. The resulting image was wrong, surfaces shining, but in the background, ghostly forms gathered like spectators. Shadows stretched longer than the light. What Yuko couldn't see with her eyes, the camera revealed in chilling detail. Figures in faded robes, faces warped by time, some gentle, some twisted in anguish. Each new photograph made the crowd swell. Spirits pressed close to the granite, some reaching out, their hands lost in the stone. The audience watching Yuko's stream held its breath, each frame a step closer to the truth, each comment echoing her fear. The air thickened. Every inhalation burned like cold smoke. Yuko's heart pounded, breaths growing shallow as a chorus of whispers swirled near the altar. Some voices recited prayers, others repeated names, ancient and modern, blending together like a hymn for the restless dead. For viewers, suspense escalated. Was this the shrine's legacy, or a trap laid for those bold enough to document its secrets? Suddenly, a shape separated from the crowd, a woman with no feet, gliding above the ground, her eyes two dark pools. Yuko froze. In old folklore, footless spirits are those denied peace, unable to lift the weight of their earthly sorrows. The spirit raised a hand and beckoned. Yuko's phone glitched, screen flickering between her own image and the spirit's gaze. The chat erupted. Ritual? Run! Ask what it wants. Yuko decided to test a theory, recalling the village priest's warning. Never touch the stones, never offer a name. But curiosity overwhelmed caution. Trembling, she uttered her own name, voice small. The spirits surged, crowding the altar. The mist thickened around her feet, cold seeping into her bones. As a final act, Yuko placed a coin beside the new stone, an offering for peace. Spirits leaned close, faces reflecting in the metal. A shudder swept the courtyard, and one voice rose above the rest. "Release us." The words vibrated, not just in the air but deep inside Yuko's chest. With each photograph deleted, the crowd retreated a step, their outlines blurring, the mist lightening. This was the moment every viewer waited for, the exchange where myth turned to reality. Yuko understood. Each stone was a prison, each offering a chance for temporary relief. The spirits weren't just haunting Hosan. They were bound here by ritual and memory, their passage barred by centuries of fear. Suddenly, a gust of wind knocked her camera from her hands. On impact, the screen lit up with one final image. The stone slab, now cracked, mist spilling from the gap like smoke, faces watching from within. The spirit woman beckoned again, her voice now gentle. "Leave the coin," she whispered. "Take nothing, offer silence." Yuko fled, stumbled back along the trail, heart hammering, ears ringing with phantom voices. Behind her, the shrine faded into fog, but the stone's shadows stretched into the forest. Her audience watched the aftermath unfold in real time. Her camera's memory erased, her stream frozen in a final snapshot, her breathless relief mingled with shame. As the chapter closes, viewers are left with more questions than answers. What power do offerings hold at haunted shrines? Can the restless ever be freed? Or do new stones only mean new names waiting to be carved? For Yuko, and anyone following Hosan's legend, escape requires leaving behind more than fear. Sometimes, the price is a piece of yourself, traded in silence for passage through the world of the restless. Stay close, because at Hosan's shrine, every stone marks a soul, and every soul waits for the next chapter to unfold. In horror, there is a moment when courage and panic collide, when the only way forward is through instinct or memory. That crossroads had come for Yuko in the depths of Hosan's shrine. She was surrounded by spirits clamoring for relief, trapped in the cold grip of mist and shadow, with only fragments of folk wisdom and a sense of mounting dread to guide her. The air pulsed with a storm of whispers, some pleading, some furious. The weight of centuries pressed in all around her. Each granite slab felt less like a monument and more like a wall built to keep both sorrow and rage contained. Yuko's audience, watching remotely, felt the pressure too, tension peaking with every heartbeat, the risk of true danger more real than ever. Remembering what she'd heard from a monk on a previous journey, Yuko reached desperately for the words of old prayers. Half-remembered Buddhist verses, childhood chants like fading echoes. She faced the cracked stone in the gloomy shrine courtyard, clasped her trembling hands, and began to recite. For a long moment, nothing happened but the mocking swirl of mist around her ankles. But then, sound changed, whispers turning to wails, mist convulsing. Shadows recoiled from the altar, pressed to the edge of the courtyard as if washed in invisible light. The icy grip on Yuko's limbs loosened, and the chorus of spirits grew more desperate, their forms flickering between presence and absence. She felt hot breath at her ear, warning her not to stop, not to falter mid-ritual. Her voice wavered, but she pushed on, stringing old syllables together in the darkness, each word delivered with more certainty. A figure emerged from the crowd, a spirit with eyes blank as new snow and mouth twisted in agony. This was the shrine's oldest captive, born from the first tragedy the valley ever knew. It moved slowly, its form shifting like smoke, its history embedded in every movement. An exchange passed between them, wordless but charged. In some stories, this is the moment when an observer's fate is decided. As the ritual continued, the boundaries between spiritual and physical realms seemed to thin. Yuko's breath came easier. She remembered the tales. If a traveler performs the proper rites and returns the offering without taking anything in exchange, they might not be marked for future haunting. At the altar, she bowed 3 times, let silence settle, and recited the final protective phrase her grandmother taught her, a line which, according to legend, closes the door between worlds for one more night. Immediately, a silence deeper than before blanketed the site. The mist drew back, the air warmed, and for one moment the ancient stones looked almost ordinary, gray, damp, quiet, just relics of old grief instead of active sites of suffering. But Yuko wasn't safe yet. She still had to cross the barrier that divided the shrine's haunted heart from the living forest beyond. Her camera, long malfunctioning, flickered to life. Hints of the ordeal remained. Static images on the screen showed fleeting movement, hints of grateful or mournful faces leaving her behind. But what really mattered was the clearing of dread and the lightness at her back. Fans watching the stream erupted, celebrating the apparent victory, but holding their breath, knowing the journey wasn't truly finished until she made it out. As Yuko walked toward the trail, the mist resisted, billowing up, thickening for one last challenge. She recalled another bit of folklore. If a pilgrim hesitates at the border of safety, the spirits can draw them back, undoing any protection just won. Yuko pressed forward, whispering her grandmother's charm, ignoring sudden chills and rustling leaves in the gloom. The forest changed as she hurried away from the shrine. Paths twisted and untwisted. The stones grew fewer, mist dissipating in patches. At the forest's edge, moonlight flickered between branches, illuminating the road home. Her steps became surer, each breath more like her own. Viewers held a collective exhale on the stream. Relief was so palpable, some swore they felt the temperature rise in their own rooms. But the ending wasn't fully peaceful. Yuko left her offering at the shrine and never looked back. As she passed the final granite milestone, she heard a single word, her own name, spoken softly by voices she couldn't see. It was equal parts blessing and warning. She had survived by invoking ritual, but would carry the memory for the rest of her life. She shared her story with her audience, not just for entertainment, but as lesson and warning. Escape from old supernatural places is never simple. It's purchased with courage, faith, and a willingness to trust in tradition. Some doors, when closed, keep their secrets, and sometimes the right words are all that stand between the living and the lost. Yuko's tale remains unfinished. Her viewers still comb through the footage, searching for anomalies, patterns in mist, echoes in audio, coded messages in stone. Yet one thing is certain. She survived Hosan's shrine by invoking the power of ritual, a power older than fear itself. The next chapter waits, as every forest breathes and every legend holds its breath. Stay alert, because in places like Hosan, escape is rare and fragile, and one mistake can echo for centuries. As dawn crept over the mountains of Saiga, the air around Hosan's shrine felt lighter but changed. Shadows receded and the mist withdrew. All that remained was silence charged with memory. Yuko, having survived the trial by ritual, emerged from the forest changed in ways no photograph could capture. But legend grows with every exit, and the shrine's hunger never fully abates. Back in the village, news of Yuko's return sparked new debates. Old men gathered at the cafe, retelling her encounter alongside the tales of vanished students and lost hikers. Children cast anxious glances at the winding path, while mothers redoubled their morning incense rituals. Yuko's audience, far from Saiga, combed through her posts and broken stream for clues that might unravel a deeper truth about Hosan Shrine's curse. The shrine itself now bore an unmistakable trace of her ordeal. The unmarked slab at its heart stood cracked and flecked with morning dew. The coin she'd offered glinted amid ancient moss. Those venturing close claimed they felt a push or sudden chill, a warning or remnant of Yuko's night that no science could explain. Authorities posted new signs, their language blunt. No entry after dusk, respect boundaries, report all disappearances. Only the bravest or most foolish chose to ignore them. Yuko faced questions from both her followers and fellow explorers. Some demanded proof, others worried about her safety, but all seemed drawn to her description of invisible boundaries, places where the air itself whispered secrets to anyone willing to listen. She refused to return, even as some begged her for a second trip, to finish what she'd started, to gather missing images. Instead, Yuko urged caution. Some places, she wrote, aren't meant for us, and some stories are best left incomplete. Her account, fragmented, sometimes surreal, became a rallying cry for a new generation of urban explorers. Instead of chasing only views and viral moments, more voices stressed the value of respect. Viewer retention soared as subscribers debated Yuko's warnings, analyzed minute details in her audio, relayed theories in comment threads that spanned continents. The narrative shifted from bravado to humility. Maybe it's not who dares to enter the shrine, but who knows when to leave untouched what lies within. Those who did venture to Hosan after Yuko's story found the shrine changed. Some brought gifts for the restless, leaving offerings at the edge of the mist. Others took photos but deleted them, pausing to say a prayer before returning to daylight's safety. Occasionally, whispers circulated. A new stone slab in the courtyard bearing the traveler's name, a lost phone sent home in perfect condition, a dream of footsteps on cold granite echoing weeks after the visit. Yuko herself struggled with sleepless nights, haunted by voices just out of earshot and shadows racing between headlights during her trip home. She tried meditation. She sought advice from monks and elders. None could fully dispel the weight of Hosan's mark. In her final post on the story, she commented, "The forest never really lets go. It simply waits for you to remember." Legends about Hosan's shrine kept evolving. Outsiders chronicled new disappearances at the border of dusk and dawn, retelling Yuko's ritual as both warning and guide. The shrine became more than a haunted landmark. It was a living story, swallowing and shaping the fate of those who ventured too close. Some said the mist itself desired company, testing the courage and humility of every trespasser, offering escape only to those willing to sacrifice certainty and pride. As each new visitor posts tales of chills and strange photos, the internet remains divided. Skeptics cite digital errors, believers point to ancient curses, folklorists expand the shrine's mythos with every retelling. But one universal thread endures: the boundary Hosan represents, between reality and myth, memory and oblivion, safety and surrender. Yuko's ordeal became the lens through which thousands now gaze into the fog, wondering if the next story will be theirs. In closing the chapter, the camera pans one last time across the stones, weathered, cold, silent. The coin is still there, and perhaps Yuko's voice lingers, lost among the echoes of the restless. The inscription on the new warning sign flashes in the wind: "Respect the stones. Do not dare the spirits. If you must go, leave nothing and take only quiet away." The last lesson is simple but unforgettable. Every boundary exists for a reason. Listen when the land forbids entry. And remember, at shrines like Hosan, some offerings are accepted, but some will never be enough. The hunger of the restless lives on, waiting for anyone who might forget how thin the veil truly is. The next story has not yet begun, but its shadows are already gathering, just out of sight, just beyond the border, forever hidden at the edge of the granite soul's shrine.